Okay, the first thing we got to do is take this thing apart because we have some measuring we've got to do. And screws in the back. There are 4 of them. And don't push too hard because the nuts are on the back side and they will push out. And you kind of really want them to stay up in there if you can. And there you go. That's what it looks like on the inside. We'll set this part to the side. Now this you will use if you have SO cord. This particular cable is 10-3 SO cord. If you have SJ cord, it's going to be loose, so you'll have to slide this up on top of that. But this is SO cord and it's much more heavy duty, and it will do just fine like this. So the first thing we got to do is measure how much of the wire we need to strip. It's going to be back to right there. So now I will take a razor knife and I will cut, not all the way through, just make a scratch on the top of the wire, and don't cut all the way through until you get to the very end right there. And then you can take it and peel it back like this. And now there's no wires cut. So now we've got to cut away the outside insulation. We have a good set of cutters here that will do that. Now we've got a reasonably good cut there, and when you do this, I would say the thing that makes it the easiest is making sure that your wire lengths are correct. And the way I do that is I take this and I put it right here. That way I know exactly how long my wires need to be, because there's the longest wire. It's going to go right there. This one is going to stop there. So we'll cut it off there. It's going to be this length. So now it lays just exactly where it should be right there. Now this one, we got to cut it off to the right length. Okay, now all the wires look to be about the right length. So now we've got to strip these wires. Many people use the manual strippers. I've been doing this for so long, and there are days that I strip as many as 500-600 wires on both ends. So I use the automatic strippers. They just seem better to me. And about that much, that's about somewhere between 3/8 and 1/2 inch. And this is number 10 wire, so we're going to go to the biggest size on the auto strippers. And we're going to do the same thing here, through somewhere between 3/8 and 1/2 inch. And the same thing on the ground. We're going to strip that off. A little bit more. All right, now, for those of you that are familiar with these will come out. So I always start with this one, and I always try to be sure that it's, when I put it on the wire, it's facing the way that it came out. Makes reassembly much easier. It's a piece of cake if you do that. So we'll put this first one on and make sure there's nothing sticking out. I do a little twist here. You don't want any little small wire pieces sticking out. This is stranded wire, and I see one, so again, correct orientation, just exactly like it came out. And if you look, when I put this against here, the end of the wire is just showing there. So that is the proper way to do it. Now we're going to tighten it very tight. This carries quite a considerable amount of current, so we really have to make sure they are tight so we don't have anything loose. Okay, now that one is in very good place. Now we're going to do the green one next. And the green one, when you take it out, it faces that way. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to loosen it up a little bit. And slide the wire in with the orientation staying the same. Make sure there are no loose wires sticking out anywhere. And if you look again, the wire comes right to the end right there, and it's butt up against this part. We got it facing the correct way. So now we'll tighten that up good and tight, just like I said. You don't want any loose wires in here because this is this plug, by the way, is for 208 volts to 240 volts. It's 3-prong, obviously, because it has three prongs on it, and it's single phase because you got 2 hots and a ground, and it's a fairly high current. I think it may be 30 amp. So anyway, now we got that one in place, and if you look, the orientation is still good. So now we got the last one. We'll pull it out, and keeping the same orientation, let's loosen the screw a little bit so we can get the wire in. Okay, now being careful on the orientation, keep it the same way. Now let's tighten it up. And again, the wire is right there on the end, and the back is butt up against. So that's somewhere between 3/8 and 1/2 an inch is almost perfect for these large plugs. All right, let's tighten this one up really good. Okay, now a safety practice is to tug on every pull real hard to make sure they're not loose, that they're not going to come out. Now here's what makes all that trouble worth it. When you put this back in, they just slide right in, just really easy. And if you don't do that, when you put this top back on, these backs will not line up. And it is really hard sometimes. So we're going to slide this back right on here and see if we can get it oriented. Yeah. And it snaps right in. So now we're going to tighten these screws back up. And now the plug is wired correctly. Now I didn't mention it, but the center is always the green wire or the ground. Both of these can be hot, and the orientation of those two doesn't matter because it is single phase. So black, green, white, or white, green, black. Doesn't matter, but this must always be the ground, the straight pin at the top. And that's how you wire up a 230 volt plug. No problem, right? Okay, so we finished this end, the plug is on. So let's take care of the other end, and what I'm making here is not a drop cord, it's called a pigtail. And it plugs into the wall on one end and goes into whatever device you want it to go into on the other. Now the particular one that I'm working on is a machine that this plugs into, and I'm going to give it 14 inches on this end to go up inside the machine and hook where it should hook. Now we're going to repeat the process to strip that we did before. Right here is where I'm going to start stripping. Just scratch it. Don't go all the way through. If you do, you might cut a wire on the inside, and you do not want to do that. So scratch it all the way down to the end. And about, oh, I don't know, about right here, we'll cut all the way through. And now we will pull this apart like we did before and strip it. Sometimes it's a little stubborn, hard insulation. So, there it goes. Now, you pull that back all the way to where you started. And again, we're going to repeat that process of removing this outer piece. So the way you do that is you flip this back, open it up, and then cut around the outside. That way you're not going to nick or cut any of the wires inside. That looks pretty good now. So now we strip the wire back. Let's inspect it, make sure there are no nicks or scratches anywhere on it, and it looks pretty good. So now we're going to take one of these, and the reason we're using this is called a strain relief, because it relieves the strain if you pull on the wire. And that way, if you pull on the wire out here, it doesn't affect it inside. You won't pull these loose, because that would be terrible. So we got a little paper covering on here. We have to take that off. Okay, we remove the paper. Now, the way I usually do this is I take this and take it completely off. There's a washer inside, so you got to be careful of the washer. I slide this on first and get it all the way down here on the black wire on the insulation. Then I slide the washer on next. Put it on there. Then there's a rubber gasket. That rubber gasket slides on next, and sometimes it's a little difficult to get it up on here. But if you get it so it is even with that insulation, if you look, you can see that's where I cut the insulation loose, and it's exactly even with that. Now we slide this piece on and get the rubber part up inside of it, and then take this down. Now, I usually take a pair of pliers and grab this and tighten this as tight as I can possibly get it by hand. And usually that's enough so that, see, I can't pull that loose now. Okay, so this particular one is a 3/4 inch conduit fitting, and this is a 3/4 inch lock nut. This is a 1/2 inch. You can see the difference. So now I'm going to take this, slide it up on here, put it on there. Now when I get to the job site, there's a hole already in the panel that is this size. I'll take this nut off, I'll slide the wires inside the panel, then I'll put this inside the panel, then I'll put the nut on like this and tighten it down, and this is permanently attached to the machine now. Right, now that we've done this, we need to do a test to be sure that everything is okay. So I'm going to test from each one of the prongs to each of the other to be sure that there's nothing shorted inside the wire. Now, I'm going to test from the prong to the end. One of these should be black, the other should be white. It doesn't matter which one. But we do have continuity on the white. All right, now we're going to go to black. There's nothing until I touch the other end. When I touch the other end, we do have continuity on the white. And we do have continuity on the green. So looks like everything's good.